Welcome to Zentangle Project Pack number 19. My name is Rick.
Hi, I'm Maria.
And I'm Molly.
Hi, Molly.
Hi, how are you?
So nice to have you with us
Right?
here.
Well, I'm happy to welcome you all to our annual Zentangle tradition of the 12 Days of Zentangle. With this project, we deliver you daily tangling lessons, guiding you through the steps to create festive tangled works of art that are all part of the same theme. And here we go with our project pack number 19. As you can see, I have
unveiling.
the unveiling. I'm opening up this beautiful rolled up. I mean, this is like so exciting, very different for our project packs. And you're getting a little peek at what's inside. Some of you maybe waited, and some of you have already opened yours up. And it has been rolled up for quite a bit of time. This is a 100% cotton paper. Beautiful, beautiful paper. And there's going to take a little bit of work to try to get this paper flat again, but not too much. So you can see what I'm doing here, just kind of carefully, almost like massaging the paper a little bit, right?
Loving, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really kind of and the cotton of the paper is so easily manipulated.
Right, and you can see that it doesn't take too much time, just carefully kind of reintroducing the paper in the other direction and then carefully rolling it the opposite way that it was before. So carefully, not to bend it or...
Yeah, you can see how big the size of the roll is. You don't want to go much more than that, right?
Yeah, and then just letting it gently open. And as you can see, it's pretty flat already, but once we add the watercolor, it's going to flatten up even more. And you guys didn't have trouble with yours, did you, when you were?
No, it was fine.
Yeah.
And if you don't have this exact project pack, we do have, you can look at project pack number 17's video, and it'll give you a little bit of a way to work with an alternate surface.
Right, and we will link that in the newsletter for those of you who don't have this particular project pack, because we always invite everyone to follow along with whatever materials they do have. So as you can see, we gave you 3 different watercolor pencils, and we do actually encourage you guys to watch this all the way through first before going ahead. So I would take your time and just pause for a minute and allow yourself to digest what's happening here. So there are 3 different watercolor pencils. You can use all 3, or you could use a combination of 2 or maybe just 1. I've started off with just 1 color here, and I think I'm going to add a second color in a little bit. But really just carefully adding bits of this pencil to different parts of the template. And the reason we want you to watch this through before you start on your own is because there's like a lot of ways to do this. And we'll show you a few ways that we did
Different options,
different
right?
Options, yeah. A couple of things, I'm carefully using sort of the side of the pencil so that the line is a little bit softer. It's not quite so thin. You get sort of this kind of wider, broad stroke with the pencil. And I'm really just adding it to different parts of the template, and just because I've chosen these particular spaces doesn't mean that you would have to choose the same ones. And as you're working through it, you really want to make sure you leave white space, and that's what kind of creates the differences in the way that this sort of creates a really cool underlay for our tangled works.
It's almost like creating a landscape where you're going to then put in the tangles. It's kind of cool.
Right? And another part of this is that this is actually just going to be what lays underneath the tangles, so I wouldn't get too attached to how this works, because we're going to be covering it all.
Right, and I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind, because this is a whole process of the 12 days, and it'll be it's a different approach, and we really invite you to stay with it at each stroke or at each step along the way, and not prejudge how you think it's going until the whole thing is done.
Right, maybe more of a marathon than a sprint, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and take your time with this coloring in process, because you know, it's just as much as a part of your artwork as any other. And in that vein, I would like to say that you don't have to do any of this coloring part. If you're like, yeah, the watercolor pencil isn't my thing, maybe I'll just skip it. You can definitely do that. You could just skip this step and go right to the tangles, which we'll start with tomorrow. So there is a lot of different ways to do this. We like to kind of, what do we say, open the buffet and you can decide what what you'd like to take.
And I want them to notice, too, that how imprecise you're being. You're kind
Really,
of
Mom?
you're kind of using the string here to kind of guide you along without it being exact. Because of how we're going to add the water to it and everything, you're not even going to even remember what this looked like after the water's on.
Right. And I think sometimes having a little bit of, you use the word imprecision, is
I
it?
like that.
Then that it kind of adds to the life of it. And
So Molly's purposely showing you that she has to sharpen these pencils quite a few times just to keep a broader edge, because you don't want it to be pointy at any point. You know what I mean? Like pointy. You want to use the side of the pencil.
so here I am introducing in another color. This is, even though the barrel of the pencil looks green, it's actually a yellow ochre.
Beautiful
It's
color.
a really pretty
it's-
color. Yep. And
I think it's the color of the year. You're seeing it everywhere. It's
right?
just so beautiful.
It is
yeah.
very, very pretty. I do love it. And I'll just carefully add in bits of it sort of along. It looks like I've kind of gone, the arcs are in one color and I'm kind of playing with the ochre in the other ones. But as you'll see with some of our other examples, the color can be put on really in so many different ways.
And this whole background, or this tapestry, or this banquet table, maybe that's a good analogy, where it's like decorating this beautiful banquet table to receive this new feast of an idea, of a metaphor that we've been working on for quite some time. And this whole like organic tree-like branching structure suggests is such a beautiful presentation for this new idea.
Well, what idea is that, Ricky?
That new idea would be Zentomology. So we've been playing around with this term for years, and we finally did this whole project with this. And Zentomology is our playful approach to categories of tangles, much like entomology is a much more structured approach to insects. Mm-hmm. But in this case, we're using, and I'll read the actual definition. Zentomology describes the system of categorizing the various characteristics of tangles and their relationships with other tangles within the study and practice of the Zentangle method. The Zentomology system is to tangles as entomology is to insects. And we, just fair notice here, we're treating this very playfully.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
we are artists and we are not scientists, but we're sort of kind of dipping our toes in there
Yes.
just a little bit. So be gentle with our precision in terms of describing entomology. We're just having some fun here and hoping it'll bring a bunch of smiles to your faces.
So just to go back to the painting here and what's happening, and we'll talk about more Zentomology in a second, but I've picked up my brush and I'm beginning to add some water, and this is fun. It's magical. It's fun. It's a little messy. It's a little wet, but you kind of in a controlled way, I would say. But as you can see, I'm adding quite a bit of water to the surface first, and I'm using my brush to add the water, but my very smart sister figured out that you could use the cap on the brush, that little straw kind of thing.
Clear straw.
Yeah, if you wanted to use that as a pipette or a way to drop some water onto the surface, she found that worked really well. So that's
Should I describe how you do that?
Sure.
Okay, so you hold that little plastic piece in two fingers, and then with your pointy finger, you put it on the top of the straw, put it in the water, take it off, fill it with water, put your finger back on, and then drop it on to your paper. And it's so cool. You're going to feel like a scientist.
So we've included that in each project pack.
Yeah.
But it is a little helpful way. And again, I'm just using my brush, so either way works. And you can see that if you don't have enough water on there, you might get sort of a dry stroke. So you'll get a feel for how much water is helpful to you. I use probably the most water out of everybody in this process, and I'm not afraid of it. But you might use a little less. It's totally up to you. And you can see that by leaving the white spaces, you drag the water over and you get different variations of the watercolor pencil. And you really don't want to cover every surface with watercolor pencil because it'll just get too much material on there, especially when we start working with the pens. So less is kind of more in this particular situation. You also don't want your background to be so dark that the pens don't show up. So yeah, just little tidbits.
And speaking of pens on this background, it's really important to let it dry. So once you do this, make sure you put it someplace and just let it dry, 100% dry, and then we'll go at it on the pens. So you can already see the looseness of like how the original pencil is now like melting and merging, and I think that's a really nice metaphor for all of these categories that are going to melt and merge together, and this whole Zentomology playfulness, because within Zentomology we're also introducing this new term called tangled genus.
Ooh.
So that whole
We're so
idea,
scientific.
it just sounds, we're really having fun with this. So we hope you have as much fun with it too, but it's this like, it gives a way of looking at things in a fresh way, and a tangled genus is a category of tangles with a common characteristic, such as organic, texture, or drama. And tangles can belong to more than one tangled genus. So some of the tangled genuses might be beginner tangles or favorite tangles.
Right.
And the scientific-ish approach or playful approach is almost like we were talking about what to say before, but it's like, how do you organize, cans in your cupboard? Is it by size? Is it by alphabet? Is it by none? Is it, just, so it's that same playful approach.
Or like me, I would just throw them in there.
And they're in there. And
I would
there.
never do that.
So this is we're going to use that approach of different genuses and different types of tangles, and we're going to fill on this like trellis, tree-like living trellis of this example of what we're going to do here.
And originally, this structure that we created, when we were coming up with this idea, we really wanted to have a project pack that introduced the idea of Zentomology, but we wanted to do it in a very different way. We didn't want it to feel textbooky. We wanted it to feel artistic. And so exuberant, right. And I had just recently seen this beautiful drawing of somebody's family tree, and I liked that idea of a family tree, and I thought, well, tangles are like these little, tangled genuses are like little families, right? And how do those families interact and play with each other? So the inspiration of this template was a family tree, but we're not going to be filling it traditionally, like filling all these spaces. We're going to be using this like a beautiful lattice where we've planted all these different tangles, and they end up sort of like intermingling with each other and combining with each other, and then seeds get planted on the opposite side and another one pops up. And so just because you plant a rose bush on one end, later on, years down the road, there might be a rose that pops up on the other side. So this is going to be really fun. And every day we will bring focus to a different tangle genus, and we'll talk about how those types of tangles have different characteristics and how they relate to one another.
Who they play well with.
Oh,
Yeah.
if they do play well with
That's
others.
true.
Yeah, because
Some
there's
of 'em
some are
absolutely not.
especially the ones you do. I feel like they're always
Oh.
have trouble.
Oh.
And in your tool pack, which is really, really awesome, we always try to get some really great new things in there. We'll be working with some larger pens because this is a larger surface. We're going to be encouraging you to work larger and to play with size and proportions
really.
to the piece that we're working.
This is the largest piece we've done so
on
far
a
in
project pack,
packs.
yeah. So here, obviously, this is another variation, and we wanted to show you guys ways that these can be done. And this has a different approach to where the pencil got put down, but we're just showing you finished. And you can see we used all three colors here, but kind of danced around with where they are. Not so there wasn't much of a system to it. Kind
It
of
was reminiscent of a first graders
what is this?
painting. Yeah. Mom, look what I did.
Well, I think it's pretty cool, and you can see how the brush just magically changes it within seconds.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so fun.
It's like stained glass.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
And I'm gonna have to say, you have to work this part. You have to work fast. Did you guys feel like there wasn't a lot of waiting?
Well, the more water you use, the more cushion you have.
Right.
But so it really is neat to use a lot of water. I really like that. But you can, if you use less and it dries out quicker, then you do want to work a little bit quicker.
It really gives you that feeling of being an artist. You know, having to give up preconceptions.
Because this is going to meld together the way it wants to meld together, and it's really sort of neat just to work with that whole process.
And I would also recommend, as you can see here, I'm working in a space and then moving along across the paper, and I don't revisit where I started because once that part's dry, you don't want to touch it again. It needs to kind of sit. So work in your space and then move along to the next space, and then at that point in time, you just want to wait until it's dry.
Right, that's good advice.
And be very gentle with yourself and remember our first comment of trusting this process because we're going to cover all of this with tangles. We're setting the table. This is like, this is going to be this wonderful feast of creativity and this is the backdrop. This is the form on which it's going to be. So just really trust the process and stay with the whole thing.
And on that, Ricky, I do want to just tap on the idea that this is a cumulative, I practiced saying that word, a cumulative project, meaning you really want to go in order. So you start with one and so on. And also the idea that like you don't want to skip ahead. So like if we get to the end of day 3, just leave it and wait till what happens in day 4 because I don't want you to be like, well, you didn't tell me we're going to need that much space or whatever it is. So that is helpful as well. Ooh, look at all that water. Oh, here's Martha's.
And so we wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what other people did and their different approaches, just so you can have it as a reference and realize that yours is going to be different than all of these.
Yeah, this is very Monet-like.
Yeah, when Molly handed out the paper to all of us that were going to be doing this project, they didn't let us see what you had done before we did it ourselves. So we all had a different approach to it.
Which was fun. This is Mom's. That looks really great. So fun.
So you see the different ideas and different approaches, and it's just great to have that as a frame of reference for when yours looks totally different from ours.
Here's Ricky's. This is very interesting. And I like the paleness of this. That's going to actually be a great canvas for the tangles and those dark, dark strings, which is awesome too.
So thanks for starting this project with us, and we're excited to see what you do, and we're excited for you to see what we do next.
Okay, don't forget, let it dry really well.
And I wanted to say this just one little bit, that we're going to work on this beautiful piece compositionally, artistically, and zentomologically.
Yes.
Whoa.
And we're going to have fun. So much love, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
See you later.